got to fill first. And as the manager is the least of the problem. They say a manager may be good for winning maybe 10 games or so a season.
Right.
So, they need someone to close. Probably a bona fide center fielder. Because right now their opening day center fielder is Brandon Nimmo. So they have things that they have to do. How they do it, we'll see. The top free agents with, the Wilpons, or the coupons, as you may call them, are not going to come here. I would love to see Anthony Rendon come here, but it won't happen. He would have slid right into third base. Right now they're looking, maybe they put J.D. Davis over there, or perhaps Jeff McNeil. But those are the things they have to worry about now. Right, Beltran's their manager, for better or for worse. And assuming that this sign stealing thing doesn't, start a season late, you may see Hensley Mullins managing opening day, depending on any suspension Beltran might get. Let's see what they do in the winter meetings. Let's see if they make any free agent signings. Because if they don't do anything, then you could bring back, I don't know, Connie Mack, and then they're not going to win.
Here's a suggestion. Now that you made a good point. They don't have a center fielder. Nimmo's metrics say he's a better left fielder. But I would say if you want to get a center fielder cheap, and you said it, the Wilpons don't like to spend money. Kevin Pillar was just non-tendered by the Giants, and defensive metrics love him in center field. And if you want a closer, the guy who had a .78 ERA last year or 2 years ago was just non-tendered by the A's. Blake Trinin's going to be cheap. Can you imagine scooping him up on a deal, bringing to a Mets bullpen that featured a Justin Wilson and an Edwin Diaz that didn't pitch to their calibers last season?
It could. It's taking a chance. So you have to be careful with some of these relievers, their workload. Seattle must have known something with Edwin Diaz to let him go after the season he had in 2018. And even now you've heard the Josh Hader rumors.
Yeah.
And maybe the Brewers are thinking, this guy has pitched a lot of innings the last 2 seasons. He's been unhittable. He's been the best reliever in baseball. But maybe at some point it catches up to him. And maybe the Brewers' mindset, although they're denying it now, is maybe we trade him a year early. But maybe he has a great 2020 for another team, but 2021 maybe he comes down with arm trouble, maybe he becomes ineffective. You see so many times with relievers like Jeffries on the Brewers, was unhittable in 2018, got released in 2019, and Trinan on Oakland, as you said, he was great in 18. He got hit last year. Is he somewhere in between those 2 seasons? I don't know. Do the Mets take the chance? Do they give Familia another chance? Do they try and hope that Diaz comes back? Relievers are a crapshoot, and it's like you're playing the roulette wheel. They could be a guy, the best reliever in baseball in 2020, you may not have even heard of.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something that just changes from year to year. It's just very rare. I think the days of seeing a Mariano Rivera who dominates for years are done.
You know what, Stuart? It's amazing that you brought up Hader, because before you even brought it up, I was thinking about talking about it, so you took great minds think alike, buddy. That's all I can tell you. But, yeah, no, I wondered about Josh Hader. Do the Brewers sell and try to get what they can, and are the Mets the willing takers to cough up a boatload of prospects?
And, if I'm the Brewers, from their standpoint, it would also be a great way, like, maybe if you get rid of a contract like Ryan Braun. So we'll give you the best reliever in baseball, but you got to take Ryan Braun also and take his contract and get that off our hands.
Well, you know what that reminds me of, don't you, when Marlins shipped Miguel Cabrera to the Tigers, and then they had to take Dontrell Willis with them. So,
they gave him
or when the Mariners dumped Robinson Cano to the Mets with Edwin Diaz.
Yeah, you can always attach a little salary stipulation to it, but will the Wilpons bite on a guy like Braun? And how would Braun even survive in New York? I could see him surviving more in L.A. than New York. That's a loaded question, isn't it, Stu?
Yeah. I don't know. What they're saying now, the Brewers are going to hold on to him. I think the fan base would probably revolt at this point. But it's something to think about. Again, and who knows, maybe if the Brewers are out of it in 2020, maybe they deal him during the season if they can get something for him.
Yeah, trade deadline deal, and say August, since they only have one. Now that they got rid of the waiver trade deadline, it's just a flat, hard trade deadline.
July.
Right.
Right.
Right. So it's, but yeah, no, I don't know. It's some interesting insights. Anything you want to ask him before we let Stu go?
No, I mean, from a financial standpoint or from a trade standpoint, if they want to get Hader, it makes a lot of sense when you consider the Mets gave up Jared Kelenic in that trade that sent Diaz to the Mariners, their best prospect, and now he's hitting like a stud, a future all-star in Seattle's farm system. If you take on most of Braun's contract, and I believe he's only got 2 years left, you can get Hader for reasonably cheap. It's the same thing when Greinke was traded to Houston. They took on most of that salary.
Right, and I think they have control. Any team that took Hader has control of him for a few more years. I mean, there's arbitration, but he couldn't be a free agent probably another 3-4 years.
Yeah, I believe it's 4 years because he's got 2 full seasons under his belt.
Right.
I think it's like a Super 2. He can go to arbitration this year as a Super 2.
Mm-hmm. Correct, yeah.
It'll be interesting to watch how they handle, certain things. And hopefully it'll be fun to watch. I mean, they were fun last season. The team didn't give up. And I'll say this for Callaway. The team never quit on him. And he may not have been the greatest, strategic manager, and he may have been over his head at times, but the team did play for him, and they made it maybe a month or so in the summer before they faltered interesting. They were definitely in the wild card, discussion.
Well, I dealt with Mickey Callaway during spring training, and I'll tell you what a great guy he really is.
Absolutely.
And it didn't take long for Joe Madden to snap him up with the Angels, did it?
Well, no, it didn't. You wonder with someone like that, he'll go and he'll be a pitching coach there. I wonder if he wants to manage again.
I would be surprised.
Some guys may just, he tried it. Maybe he wasn't thrilled with it. Maybe he's just happy developing pitchers.
Yeah, but if I had to venture a guess on it, my gut feeling is that Mickey Callaway could get another shot. I really do. I know the Mets job and the way that organization's set up isn't the easiest at times, but if I were going to predict whether a guy would manage a second time, I would certainly give Mickey Callaway one of those. And I can only say that because I got to know the guy well in my dealings with the Mets last year, and I don't know, it's just a hunch. And Stu, we both know that you have to follow your hunches in this industry for sure. And to me, I think Mickey Callaway will manage. Now, how long will it take for him to get a managerial job, or how long he wants to go, is anybody's guess at that point. But I predict that he will. Closing thoughts, Lewis, for Stuart.
Yeah, Callaway could be Lee Mazzilli if he wants to be. He'd be like the pitching coach on those great Braves teams and just work and develop guys the way that, Mazzilli did with the Braves in the late 80s and the early 90s with Smoltz and Glavine and then Maddox after 92. I think that's his best suit. Will he manage again? Yeah, but it may go down in flames the way that it may with Rick Rennery in a couple years in Chicago, because I don't think they think he's the right guy for the job moving forward.
A lot depends. It's almost like picking a spouse. What works for one may not work for the other. So The New York market didn't work for Callaway, so to speak. So who's to say if he goes to a smaller market, maybe one day in Pittsburgh, or maybe where expectations aren't that high, he goes in, players love playing for it, you get the right mix, maybe he makes a run, and maybe it's possible. It's hard to predict also. Who would have thought Joe Torre would have been as successful as he was based on when he managed the Mets and the Cardinals and the Angels for a little bit and the Braves? And all of a sudden he's winning world championships for the Yankees. So sometimes it's hard to predict how a guy will do, but if you put Callaway maybe in a small market one day, the team he'll be a good fit. He's not going to get a lot of money. He didn't earn that from here, so no one's going to have to give him a big contract to manage.
Right.
But you never know. Put him in the right situation, maybe he does it. But I guess, Scott, you know a little better than I do. You're closer. But some guys, maybe they try and they just, in a lot of things, in business as well, maybe some people aren't meant to be in the spotlight, meant to be in the front. They like kind of backing people up, being on the sidelines, supporting actor.
Yeah, but you made a good point. I can see a guy like Mickey Callaway working in a much lower keyed market. And before we let you off, I think of Mike Matheny is a good example. Although St. Louis is a great baseball town, he'll be appreciated in Kansas City, and it depends on the spot. Smaller markets aren't the worst. It's not how much money you spend.
Pressure, and there won't be pressure on them to win right away.
Oh, no question about it. Oh, yeah, you're on house money at that point. The
when
guy.
He went to St. Louis, there was higher expectations of him. Although St. Louis, is a great baseball town, but you come in there, the Cardinals are expected to contend every year.
Yeah, I mean, he came in off of Tony La Russa retired the day after the Cardinals won the World Series, and he did win a pennant 2 years later. But I do agree with you. Kansas City's in the midst of a rebuild, and it's going to be a long time before they're competitive, and he's going to see possibly the likes of Whit Merrifield traded away before July 31st comes and goes. Yeah, but like you prefaced it with Torrey, baseball's a strange game, so you never know what's going to happen. And I really don't think there's much else we can say about that. So if Beltran's successful, just chalk it up to the baseball.
You save the tape of this and you play it next September.
Yeah, right, when the Mets win 93 games and deface Girardi's Phillies.
That's right. That would be a good thing.
Scott, any closing on that?
No, I think you pretty much summarized it. But meanwhile, Stuart, we want to invite you back to be one of our baseball guests. And Stuart, why don't you, Lewis will extend an invitation about a baseball show.
Yeah, so Stu, we do a show twice a month called 108 Stitches, Baseball Talk Around the Horn. It's me and Scott, similar format, but it's all baseball. We're talking everything that goes on in the game of baseball. And you know what? One of these days, we'd love to have you on as a guest.
Okay, that'd be great. I'd love to come on.
Yeah, it'd be great. We can, talk about our, in my opinion, the most beautiful game in the world. So
it is America's game, America's pastime, national pastime.
Well, Stu, it was a pleasure, and we hope to hear from you soon.
Yeah, I'll give you a call tomorrow, Stuart. But thanks a lot for your insights. But you're going to obviously be talking more about the Mets under that format. Let me tell you, buddy. So. All right. Well, thanks for being on the Sports Exchange, Stuart, and hope you have a great rest of the night.
You too. Thanks for having me, guys.
You're welcome. Thank you, buddy.
Take care.
You bet. Bye. So, any thoughts about what Stuart?
Yeah, he makes a few good points. I still generally think Beltran's hiring by Van Wagenen was almost like a puppeteer kind of thing. He just wanted somebody that he can control. And you know what? Stuart made a phenomenal point. You're not going to control Buck Showalter, the guy that literally was... I mean, the buck stops here, no pun intended, to get a little Harry Truman on you guys. Right. But, I mean, Buck Showalter is a commanding presence. Joe Girardi won a World Series in New York 2 years after Joe Girardi left. So, I mean, he knows exactly what he's doing over there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Buck Showalter is not one of those kinds of guy. He's his own man. You're talking about a guy that went out there and was the first manager of the Arizona Diamondbacks. Mm-hmm. Built it from scratch.
You know what's one of the funniest things, though, Scott, is two of those three teams that he's left, what did they do the next season? And the one thing that may keep him out of the Hall of Fame is they won a World Series. He leaves the Yankees after 95. Joe Torre comes in. They beat the Braves. He leaves the Diamondbacks after 2000. Bob Brenly comes in, and what happens? They beat the Yankees. So, I mean...
Well, but that happens a lot in sports. Some guy does the dirty work, and the other guy finishes the job. I mean, I can tell you how many times, if I want to really go out there and get into it outside of your sport, okay, a team that I covered over the weekend, the Tampa Bay Bucks had Tony Dungy lay it out there for John Gruden to get that team. And if I want to stay in the gridiron, we'll talk about the gift that Barry Switzer got, okay, when Jimmy Johnson laid it. So you're not the only one that could go out there and throw out stats, even though you do a pretty good job of it.
I appreciate that. But, yeah, it's crazy. One guy sweeps and one guy mops. I think that's the most apropos way to put it.
You think? Oh, look at this guy. All right. The more experience he gets, the more he can throw these one-liners. So,
yeah, I mean, the Mets, if they want to revamp their bullpen, I think Trinan's a good start. If, like he said, he had a 4+ ERA this year, but a .78 in 2018. If he's in the middle, he's a 2.4 ERA, and that's all-star quality for a relief pitcher. I think the Mets need that. Their bullpen ERA was the worst in the majors in 2019. Other than Baltimore and Washington, they were pretty bad. But stranger things have happened. I'm fascinated to see how Beltran does. I think the NL East right now, if you'd agree with me, is the best division in baseball because obviously the Marlins are getting better. We saw they just got Jonathan Villar, a 4-win player by wins above replacement, who was just dumped for nothing for a Rule 5 pick. They got Jesus Aguilar. The Nationals are going to bring back either Rendon or Strasburg. And what do we have here? The Mets, hire Beltran, and they got DeGrom, and they got Syndergaard, who hopes to be better in 2020 if they don't trade him. I mean, and the Phillies are going to get better. Joe Girardi's a great manager, in my opinion. I think he gets the most out of everybody on that team. Right. I think he's a perfect manager for Bryce Harper. But, we're going to switch divisions in a second. We're going to go NL Central with our next guest, but that's all I'll say there. I'll leave the lid on it for now. But Yeah, so far, first two guests, Scott, what do you think of tonight's show thus far?
We're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
No complaints. But I've known Stuart for a long time. Stuart's a very good friend of mine, and I met him through, like I told you earlier, Peter Wynn, WEI Network,